Hi, everybody. Just testing. Good.
So it picks it up. I would like to announce that a quorum is present, the meeting is duly called, and a notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6 p.m. The following board members are in attendance: Catherine Sells, Dr. Buddy Bonner, Allison Masson, Sheila Taylor, Michelle Akateb, Dr. Stacy Barker, and Jenny Prosnick. I've asked board member Buddy Bonner to lead us in prayer.
Please join me in prayer. Come, Lord, into this place and lead us in the education of students, support for their families and our staff. Please be with us as we collaborate with our community partners. Lord, we ask for your continued guidance as the district faces heavy issues in Lewisville ISD. We seek your peace and mercy across the United States tomorrow and know your plans will carry the day, whatever our human endeavors hold. Please lead, guide, and direct us in the coming days, and let our ears hear you and our eyes see you and our hearts find you as we pursue your will and not ours. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. Ms. Lasson, would you read our mission and vision statements?
Yes, ma'am. Our mission statement for tonight is engaging and inspiring learners and leaders. Our vision statement for tonight is all students are confident, equipped with the knowledge and skills to thrive and adapt for their future.
Thank you. I will take just a moment of privilege and wish both the LHS Farmers Volleyball and the Hebron Hawks Volleyball as they are playing right now as we are in session for the bi-district playoffs. So good luck to both of them. Not each other, by the way, playing other teams. Next on the agenda is public comment, and we had no qualified speakers sign up. So we will move on to discussion items. First up, the superintendent's report. Dr. Rapp.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you so much. Tonight I'm going to share some considerations regarding employee compensation. Of course, we left off last spring when we were talking about employee compensation and where things stood with the budget. I'll share some information, then I'll turn it over to Mr. Rare to share some information, and then I'll come back and close it up. So our context, of course, for fiscal year 25, just as a reminder, is that we adopted a $4.5 million deficit. Our fund balance currently has $132 million in it, and that has decreased over $48 million since fiscal year 20, and is now down to that 3 months of operating expenditures level, which your board policy requires that we have, as well as our state financial rating, too. We cannot take any more funds from fund balance in order to address employee compensation. So at the board meeting on June 10th, you approved a resolution to consider a 1% of a midpoint raise and or a $500 one-time payment later this fall upon seeing how fiscal year 24 was going to conclude. So let's go back to where we left off with fiscal year 24. We had ultimately worked the deficit down from a $14.9 million adopted deficit budget for fiscal year 24 to a balanced budget with the use of some land sale money to offset some expenditures, along with significant reductions in central office positions and central office budget reduction. So upon reducing central office positions and budgets and then using land sale, we were able to say to you all we thought the budget for fiscal year 24 would end balanced. So now I'm going to have Mr. Rare talk to you about where do we see fiscal year 24 coming in at.
Okay, so as Dr. Rapp shared, back on August 7th, we did present the $3.3 million projected deficit. And so over the last month, we've been working to finalize our audit for fiscal year 24. The auditors are continuing to work on, they've completed their field work, but they're continuing to work on their testing prior to bringing you the audited financials in December. But so since then, what we were looking at, instead of a projected deficit of almost 3.4 million, we were looking at an actual deficit of about 441,000. So significantly less than what we were projecting back in early August. And then from that actual deficit, we did have some one-time adjustments that were made to our financials that would bring us to what we're now projecting to be our end-of-year fund balance. And so the first one that I wanted to highlight is a state aid settle-up and recapture refund that the district received on September 30th. And so throughout the year, the state is basing our payments from the state based on a lot of different factors. But one of those would be the property tax collections that they think the district's going to receive for the year, as well as what they think our ADA is going to be. And so after the year is over, they start receiving some more updated numbers, one of those being what we now think our property tax collections will be for the year. And so we've discussed this in previous meetings, but our property tax collections for fiscal year 24 were almost $25 million less than what the state was using for their projection. And the main reason for that is the freeze adjustments that were made after the budget was adopted. And so as a result of property tax collections being much lower than what we projected, our recapture payment went down almost $900,000. So we received a refund of almost $900,000 for recapture, as well as a settle-up payment of about $2.6 million. So that's that first line item there, totaling almost $3.5 million. The next one, another one-time adjustment that we had the sale of Sunset Trail property, and those funds were received in August of 2024 of $4.3 million. And so those proceeds were what we considered to be free and clear, meaning there was no outstanding debt on that land. And so we were able to deposit those proceeds straight into the general fund. And then the last item is, on the previous slide, we talked about reclassing land sale. And so we were able to identify capital outlay expenditures that were paid for out of the general fund in fiscal year 24 of almost $1.6 million. And so we reclassed those to the land sale account at the end. And so taking all of those one-time adjustments into account to help offset what the actual deficit was, that provided us with a projected fiscal year 24 funds available for a compensation increase of $8.9 million. So then we're taking a look at the different options that were discussed back in June on the resolution that was presented to the board. The two options were 1% of a midpoint raise for all staff and or $500 one-time payment for all staff. And so just listing out those two different options and kind of taking a look at the pros and cons of each of those. For a 1% of midpoint raise for all staff, we'd be looking at a projected cost of approximately $4 million. Some of the pros for that is that 1% midpoint raise would be credible compensation for TRS, and so that would impact future payments that staff members will receive in retirement. And then also that would help the district continue to make progress on our placement in the market in comparison to other districts and their pace. As far as the negatives for that option, this would be a reoccurring cost, and so we adopted a $4.5 million deficit budget for fiscal year 25. So that payment, that 1% payment would be made in fiscal year 25, and so basically that takes your $4.5 million deficit up to an $8.5 million deficit. That would also require the district to identify that amount in budget reductions when creating fiscal year 26 budget, just to continue to cover that ongoing expense. For the $500 one-time payment for all staff, the projected cost would be about $3.5 million. The pros would be that this would not continue to impact future year budgets, in that the amount would be of the one-time payment would be almost equivalent or potentially higher than a 1% raise, depending on the salary for the employee. And then the con would be that this would not be credible for TRS purposes.
So our next steps would be, after discussion this evening, to bring forward an action item for Monday night, the 11th, that will allow us to address compensation with these funds that would apply to staff according to the resolution that you all passed. Whatever you choose to do, whether it be a 1% midpoint raise or a one-time payment, it would be retroactive from September to the December pay, and then every month after that is the way that that resolution was written. Again, just to reiterate that the way ultimately, since there's been a lack of increase to the basic allotment, that we're able to identify funds for employee compensation is by significant reductions in central office budgets and positions, along with the sale of property, in order to provide additional funds to make this possible this time around. And with that, Ms. Prosnick, I'll turn it back over to you.
Dr. Barker?
Just a clarifying question that I don't think that everyone understands. Not all land that we sell can be used in certain ways. Am I correct? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, so if there is outstanding bond debt that we need to pay off, then the proceeds from a land sale would go to pay that off, and then anything left over after that could be used for daily operations of the school district.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm sorry, I have one other comment. My second comment is just one of the things, whether we consider either of these options, one of the things that I'm hearing from staff members as I'm in campuses is how difficult this year has been in regards to their paycheck, not just because of the same things that everybody else is experiencing, inflation, rising costs, et cetera, but in many cases, our staff members are actually making less this year than they were last year because of the increase in insurance costs, which is taken out of their paycheck in many cases before they get it. And so many of them are seeing their at-home pay less than last year, which is, as an educator myself, heart-wrenching to hear that from our teachers. But I will say this, the staff that have mentioned this to me and have talked to me about it, they say, I'm not mad at the board, I'm mad at the situation, and I'm mad at those who could have changed this situation. So thank you for allowing me to ask that question and share.
Ms. Lasan?
Thank you. Okay, so my thought on this is I don't feel comfortable giving the 1% raise because that carries forward and we don't know what our future still looks like. But I would support a one-time payment. I would even, to your point about the land sales, I wouldn't even have a problem with making the $500 a little bit higher if that costs 3.5. I mean, like, how much is $750? That would be my thought. Normally, I realize that I would prefer to do a percentage increase, but just in this particular situation that we're in right now, hopefully it'll be different next year, is that I would just prefer the one-time payment. But I guess to maximize, if we have this $8 million, it's almost $9 million. How can we maximize that most with our staff?
Ms. Taylor? Sorry.
So, first of all, I want to say thank you to the staff. They have been resilient and very supportive, and they have stood with us just based on our retention numbers. So that definitely does not go unnoticed. Them not having raises or having some type of compensation increase is one of the things that has weighed on me and kept me awake at night, along with some of the other difficult decisions that we have to make. So I'm glad that we are able to do something. I agree with Ms. Lasan on both points with wanting, I would rather see the one-time payment, just because if we make it a 1% increase, we are increasing the deficit budget that we already accepted almost twofold. So I'd be concerned about that going forward, and we have, fiscal responsibility to ensure that we break even and not eat into a fund balance that we know we're limited with doing anyway based on our credit rating and the amount in the fund balance. So I would definitely support that. I also agreed when I saw the numbers that I wanted to know if we could do anything additional, because my understanding was the insurance cost, the increase was about $500, I thought, for most people. So I would like to see that number bump up, and I thought $750, surprisingly, that if we could get to that and maybe have a little bit left over to put in the fund balance, that would be fiscally responsible on our side while taking care of our staff. The only question that I had was with the $500 one-time payment that may change to something else. I guess I'm not sure how is it a one-time payment where you get it in your check and that's the $500? Or, okay, because it sounded retroactive, and I was like, is it broken up?
That's for the 1%.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah, we'd need to go back and revisit that resolution language. Since TRS was not really favorable towards the one-time payment being TRS creditable, we tried to word it in a way that it would be. They didn't accept that. So we basically, if it's a one-time payments desired, we'll be able to structure that in a way because the TRS is not going to give us that as creditable compensation. So,
Dr. Bonner?
I've got a lot of thoughts, but before I get into my rant, excuse me, I do think that's a point of clarification around the resolution because I don't think we can change what we resolved to do. So we may have to bring that back if you're not prepared to speak to that.
Well, ultimately, because the whole point of having the resolution worded the way we did was trying to get the one-time payment to be TRS creditable, which TRS did not say that was going to be okay. So as far as a one-time payment goes, if you all decide you want to do a different amount, it isn't going to be TRS creditable anyway. If we need to bring forward a different resolution for that, we absolutely can. It won't be because it's going to be TRS creditable, though. Does that make sense?
Correct. So on that, we're not restricted in the amount. Is that correct? Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah. The amount that you have, and I know Deanne's, the amount that you have ultimately, because you're not looking at something that we're going to go back and try to get TRS approval on, then you've got a little bit more flexibility there.
Okay. That's good. Okay. Now for my rant. What a sad state of affairs. We're over here cobbling things together because we don't have the money because we're not funded adequately. We've got some settle-up monies. Well, no one saw that coming, correct? That's SHARs and some other things. We've got land sales. That's one-time money for an ongoing expense. And then we've got some shell game we played over here, no offense to the finance people, moving some money from here to there and yonder so that we can pay our staff. I am disgusted with the whole thing. I don't even want to continue because I may lose my temper. The idea that we're going to give our staff 1% and a $500 at most is deplorable. And here we are talking about maybe doing less. And I'm not throwing rocks at my colleagues. I get it, and I get everything you said down there. I am 100% behind a 1% plus $500. And, I'll close with this. I hope our teachers are mad. I hope they're mad at us. I hope they're mad at the people that put us in this position. And I'm going to curtail my further comments about being mad because I'm about to go down the road of what they should and shouldn't do, and I don't want the Attorney General coming after me.
Ms. Sells?
You may not be able to answer this, but in just my thinking, and I did agree with you, with my colleagues on the one-time payment, and I do believe I would like to see different scenarios. It's one thing that I put down in that amount being more. But one thing I'm not sure about, because we've talked about this ever since I've been on the board, but I've never known the true impact to the TRS creditable different. What is that difference when you talk about that? And I know that that's an end game, that's down the road, but for me as a board member, I need to know what that change is going to be before I can make one of these decisions.
Right. And I ran the numbers, I used the 65,000. So I just equated it to like an average teacher's salary. And so I put that into the retirement calculator. And so what that would do, by doing the 1% raise on top of that, it would be about a $7 per month difference for retirement. So, it could be more for some, less for others, but on average, about $7.
Thank you for that. That's just something that we've never talked about around this table, is what the actual difference is. And I do mirror my colleague, Dr. Bonner's discussed. It just begalls me that we sit here and we talk about everybody around this table does not believe that our teachers are paid enough. Not one iota. And even if we had been able to give a 3 or 4% raise this year, they're still not paid enough. I don't know what it's going to take for our community and our population to understand that without those people in those classrooms, our country is a very different country. Talk about the number of teachers leaving the profession because they are not respected and because maybe the pay is not the major factor. But when I show up in the morning, I want to know that somebody is glad I'm there. And that should be across the board in this country. Because without public education, we would be nothing. And I've been to the countries where public education is not there. And I will tell you, you don't want to be there. So for all of our teachers that are out there, we couldn't do it without you. And we are going to continue the fight. So thank you.
Ms. Alcatab?
I, just like my colleagues, am very angry that we are even having to sit here and have this conversation yet again. It is unfortunate that we are in this situation. As my colleague Dr. Bonner said, we're kind of having to pull pennies from here and pull this from that and land sale and this. It's not fair. It is not fair to our LASD community. It is not fair to our teachers and our staff, our custodians, our nurses, our administrators, everybody who daily takes care of our kids. It is not fair that we are having to sit here and have this conversation. And I, too, am angry by that. I know that being a teacher, I was one. I was an administrator. I get it. It is a hard, hard job. And our teachers are not compensated as they should be. And I hate that for them. And I use that word strongly. And I wish that some people down in Austin would be hearing us, because this is one of those situations, once again, that we're having to say we are not paid as a district as we should be in order to make sure that we are funding our teachers and administrators, our nurses, our custodians, every single person on that campus who we entrust to take care of our kids every single day. I wish that we could pay them more, and I want to pay them more. So I hate that we are even having to have this conversation.
Ms. Alcatab, is there a scenario that you prefer?
Me too. I would like to, as Ms. Sells said, I would like to see some other scenarios if we do. Now that we know that the resolution doesn't matter, well, not that it doesn't matter, that we can possibly increase that one-time payment. I would like to see other options as well. I would love to be able to do a 1% and the one-time payment, but if we can get to a scenario where the one-time payment does not lock us in for future budgets, and it's something comparable to what they would get this year, I would love to see that.
Dr. Barker, do you have a scenario that you prefer?
I do. See, we're all so upset about it. I didn't even say what I preferred. And I'll give a little justification as to why. One of the things that happens with TRS is that it's also based on an average of your salaries over a certain number of years. So, best case scenario, we do a one-time payment now, and the legislature takes care of business. And then we can give a raise in the future that then ups that average, even though we weren't able to do it now. So that's, to me, the best possible scenario that we can feasibly do. I'd love for it to be more, obviously, if that's a scenario that works and that we can agree on. But I don't see us in a fiscally responsible way being able to increase our deficit in future years. We've got to have something from the legislature to be able to do that.
I just want to thank staff for showing up this year. I want to thank them for showing up for kids, which is why we're here. I want to thank them for showing up every single day, even though we weren't able to give them what they deserve as far as compensation goes. And I am greatly appreciative of them. I, too, would like to see as much of it that we can maximize. I would also like to know, Mr. Rare, exactly where we need to be in that fund balance so that we are not falling behind that 3 months and what that buffer needs to be to look like. Because that's how we're rated when we do go out for bond sales, et cetera. And it's also, I think, part of our, I know why we need to have the 3 months, but I know that we have had to answer some of those calls with the rating agencies as far as that goes. So in the past, we've spent, as it said here, $48 million to try and limp this along in hopes that the legislature would pay attention for the last 5 years. And they haven't. So I will just remind everybody of the $3.9 billion that sits in Austin and does not sit in our classrooms. And I will remind everybody of our one legislative priority. We have one ask and one action, and that is to
1, 2. The wireless mics work. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2. Yeah, there. Test 1, 2.
Those are back up working.
It is 6:42. We are back on the record. I believe I was talking about the $3.9 billion that sits in Austin. My preference is to see where we land on what we can do and what we need in fund balance to make sure that we are we are here in some ways because we spent all of our money, as I said earlier, putting Band-Aid on Band-Aid, just waiting for Austin to do their part. And the last time we sat here, I was certain that Austin was going to do its part, and so I voted for the raise from the midpoint. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I can't do that to the budget going forward. And it is my sincere hope that the legislature not only does their duty, but they do it early in their session and not later. They do not wait for Sinai Day at 11:53 p.m., that they recognize the value that we recognize in this district of our teachers and our staff. A lot has been said about administrators lately, and I want to give a shout out to administrators because administrators take things off teachers' plates. And administrators give support to teachers so teachers don't have to do that with our dyslexia specialists. And all of the support that we put in our professional learning teams that make sure that our teachers are on track with their professional learning, those are all administrative jobs, but those are jobs to support and help teachers. So I believe that it takes every person in this district to make it run well across 127 square miles. And while our students are our heartbeat and our teachers are on the absolute front lines, that I don't want to uncredit the people who support that front line so that it can do its job and do its job well. So with that, I will stop speaking. Do you have everything you need, Dr. Rapp?
Yes, Madam President, I think I do, and I just want to say thank you again to the board. You know, as we've talked about, this has been an extremely tough budget cycle for fiscal year 25, and we know that ultimately over the last several years, you know, you all have done everything you can do between the retirement of 2 other schools, the selling of land, the counting on the legislature in the last session to increase the basic allotment, and they did not do that. And so we have, as we've stated several times, we are facing a circumstance where you've got declining enrollment, and how you receive funding for schools is through your enrollment, and you've got a lack of increase to the basic allotment. And so it is the toughest circumstances, as I have said numerous times, that I have seen in over 20 years in central office and 29 years in this school district. And I know that our staff knows that you all and all of us have worked as much as we can to identify funds to be able to bring some kind of compensation relief forward for them. So thank you for your advocacy and with the state of Texas for changes to our school finance system.
All right, with that, moving on. Learning and teaching report. Ms. Gall.
Thank you. Rosnick. Dr. Green's going to come up and join us with a collaborative team to share with you fantastic educators to share with you our technology and learning presentation. Along with Dr. Green, we have Kathy Fields, who's our Administrator of Digital Learning, Arts Administrator. We've also got Carly Beck, who is one of our instructional technology facilitators. Yes, Courtney Bowen from Southridge Elementary is here to join us.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Rapp. We're excited to share with you tonight how we're integrating instructional technology into the curriculum and content areas. Tonight, we're specifically going to be sharing about Canvas and how we use Canvas in the elementary setting, specifically with kindergarten, first, and second graders. So Canvas is our district learning management system. We use it for grades kindergarten through 12th grade in LISD. We began using Canvas for grades kindergarten through 5th in the fall of 2020. We have a Skyward integration, which scopes all students into the learning management system for the teacher's ability to have classes within that system. It allows for the students to interact with digital resources so they can access all of their instructional materials through the Canvas system. They also are able to create products and submit those products back to the teachers, things such as photos, videos, and interactive tools to engage young learners. And so tonight we're going to share with you some of the ways we've worked with the content areas to integrate high-quality learning in grades kinder, first, and second. This aligns to the 4 cornerstones. If we're able to share content with students, they're able to create things and share it back with us. That's alignment to student learning. Also aligns to student experience. Having one learning management system for all grades K through 12 ensures that when a student moves from class to class or from grade to grade, they have that same experience as they move along in our system. It also aligns to resource stewardship. We work with our curriculum writing teams to ensure that we create resources that are easily accessible by all teachers. And then it's also that community engagement. Parents are able to pair with their students within the Canvas system so that they can get a window into what's happening in the classrooms and able to see student progress and feedback that the teacher is giving them. So it really aligns to all 4 cornerstones here in LISD.
So this guide outlines the K through 12 recommended integration of Canvas in the classroom. You're going to notice a gradual increase in both engagement and skill building aimed at enhancing the students' capacity as they advance through the years in Canvas. Beginning in kindergarten, students are introduced to foundational skills such as logging into Canvas and interacting with various media. They typically access learning stations for shorter, more focused periods on Canvas. Each year, new tasks are introduced and incorporated based on curriculum goals, technology application, TEKS, and developmental appropriateness on the tools, promoting both powerful production and our critical consumption. So this video highlights in grades K through 2 actively accessing and submitting content through Canvas. Our digital learning team has built strong partnerships with the Learning and Teaching Division to support all content areas and programs. Instructional technology facilitators have collaborated closely with content administrators and teachers to design and integrate curriculum-aligned lessons directly into Canvas, creating seamless and engaging classroom experiences for both the students and the teachers. These examples represent just a portion of the work happening throughout LISD, but today we're going to specifically focus on using the word sorts with Canvas. This was developed in partnership with our Reading and Language Arts team. Ms. Beck can be seen in the video teaching first graders how to access, manipulate, and learn the Canvas sorts. When the students are finished, it takes just a few taps to submit their work back to their teacher through Canvas. Kids love seeing the Canvas panda and the confetti letting them know their submission was successful. Currently, we offer about 35 word sorts in first and second grade. They're offered in English and Spanish, and Amy's going to tell you a little bit about that.
So the next couple of slides are going to give us a little lesson on reading and why we chose Word Study to be an area to partner with them and why that's important for our kids. So in that image up there, you'll see Scarborough's reading rope, and this is a research-based image that shows all of the skills that go into becoming a skilled reader. So our Word Study collaboration is really hitting that word recognition part. And so with that, those skills are weaving together with language comprehension as they become increasingly automatic and strategic, hopefully culminating in that skilled reading, right? So these are taught through systematic and explicit instruction in our classroom as students play with the sounds and words through the phonological awareness. It's hard to read up there, but that's what that first category says. And then learning which letters and combinations of letters that represent each sound, the phonics and decoding skills, and then recognizing words that don't follow the typical patterns in English through sight word practice. And so through that strand, I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about how these things work. So reading and spelling are reading and writing coding and encoding are really two sides of the same coin. So our language is a type of code. So when we are reading, we're decoding, and when we spell, we are transcribing the code or encoding. So those are just some words you might hear. If I see the letters, for instance, in hat, so I'm going to look at the left side of the screen. So if I see H-A-T, and I know the sounds that those letters represent, and I'm teaching my students what sounds those letters represent, we can use that knowledge to say, at. And then hopefully I can blend those sounds together, hat, and then I can picture a hat, and yay, I've decoded the language. It works the opposite way with spelling. So if I hear a word or see something that I want to spell, and I hear the word hat, hopefully I can segment my sounds and go at, and then encode that to H-A-T. So knowing that these foundational literacy skills are really important for our readers and writers, that's why we chose Word Study as our first collaborative opportunity.
So also, it's a bonus while they're using Canvas. They're also seamlessly engaged in the technology application TEKS, and they work with the technology application TEKS alongside the content TEKS. Canvas empowers students to follow directions, implement the design process, communicate online with different digital tools. It also allows students to explore various applications, to submit those, to work with them, and to create and to gradually build their digital skills as they progress through the older grades.
I'm going to walk you guys through what it looks like for the student side, how they access these sorts. So the student will log into Canvas. Once they log into Canvas in the teacher course, they'll select the sort they're learning about. Here they will click on the link below. Once they tap that link, an export icon will appear on the top right, and then they'll select the app keynote. And here is where the activity opens up. You'll see on the left-hand side there's 3 different activities, and this first activity is an open sort. And an open sort is basically where the students will look at the spelling patterns and try to identify the patterns all on their own. So they'll touch and move, sort their words, and when they're finished, almost finished, they'll move to slide number 2, which is known as a closed sort. So a closed sort in spelling, that's an activity where the words are sorted into specific groups or patterns to help the students learn those spelling patterns. You'll hear them sounding out words, and then you'll see here on slide 3, this is a typing activity. Directions for you. But basically, you're just listening. It says the directions where once the student touches the speaker icon, it will have a word, and then the student will practice with their typing skills to type the word. So 10 words are chosen. Once the students finish with this, often they'll move back to slide 1, and they'll add in a recording of them spelling the word out loud as well. The student can also submit their work to their teacher, so they'll click the export icon and then the Canvas app. Here, they'll make sure that they have their course selected, and they'll select the teachers or the assignment. And then the fun part, because once they click the assignment and then submit, they get so excited because they see the panda and the confetti, and it's a big celebration. Yay! And that's what they all do in the classroom. So we're going to switch gears now and look at the teacher side. So now the students have submitted the work, so the teacher will log into Canvas, navigate to the assignment, and then once the teacher selects that assignment, this teacher just has 1 student in their class. You can see that the work is right there on the teacher's screen, so all 3 slides will be there. In the Canvas app for the teacher, she can add the annotation, so mark right on top of the work for the student. And then over on the right-hand side, the teacher can also provide comments. So the teacher can type back comments to the student. There's also a way for the teacher to add an audio recording to the student as well. So if think about our young learners, hearing that audio recording is a good feature as well. One other note I wanted to point out, anytime a parent is connected or paired with their child, the parent will see the work submitted along with the feedback from that the teacher has provided. Like done, and they're finished.
And next, we're so honored to have Courtney Bowen here from Southridge Elementary. She's a first grade dual language teacher, and I also have to give a shout out to some of her team members that showed up as well in the audience. So we're so excited to have them here.
Okay, so I love that we were able to include technology in foundational skills because a lot of what we do is teach with our technology so the kids are actually able to use it now. It works for all of my students. So students who may not know all the letters or sounds can do a sort on their level, whereas we actually came up with the idea to have students go back and hear themselves recording their own words and the letters and the sounds. It helps with their fluency, articulation, pronunciation, which is great for dual language. In dual language, it can be tricky, so we have to coordinate colors and things like that because our stuff is going home or between classes. So it's nice to have it on the iPad where it's just kept there and we don't have to do extra copies. Students can work together, they work by themselves. Even if I have a substitute, they can still come in and access this. The other thing that's been great is it picks up where they left off. So whenever we're doing our paper sorts or working in our notebook, you have to clean up and move on to your next subject. And it's been really nice to be able to pick up your iPad and start instead of restarting every single time. And then they're able to independently submit these to me, and I don't have an entire stack of papers at the end of the day to grade just to see how their sorts are going. So that's been really nice. And then we can, at the end of the unit, go back and to discuss the why or why some things were wrong or how they could fix it, and they can always go back as we learn new skills. So it's been a great resource that really targets the essential skills for my students.
And with that, we will take any questions that you have.
Ms. Lasson.
I just want to comment, this is really cool, and as I'm watching your presentation, of course, I didn't really know what you were going to be talking about, but I just got a flood of memories of these word sorts, of coming home and the cutting and the glue sticks and the putting up, and so this is really cool. I think this is really neat. I did not know we were using Canvas this young, so that's fantastic. Thanks for being here.
Dr. Becker?
Yes, thank you for sharing, especially the student impact and meeting those skills and needs. I do have a question about prep time, and then you talked a lot about like grading time is a little bit easier and things along those lines, but I'm curious, is this a heavier lift maybe early on to develop these things, but then it's less of a lift as you're moving through planning, or is it less planning time altogether because of it's so seamless? I'm just curious about how it impacts your planning and prep time.
Sure. So it began with a collaboration between our reading language arts and our facilitators. And so it was definitely heavy lifting at the beginning, getting it right, getting it translated, testing it. We didn't want to just put it out there, and we wanted to make sure it worked well with the students and it was seamless. And so that part was great. And now that it's in Canvas, the teachers can use it over and over again, year after year. And if they even need to reassign a sort, it's there for them. They don't have to run and make copies. And so the hard work's been done, and now they get to enjoy it in the classroom.
So follow-up question to that, is there a feedback loop where if they're requesting maybe a different type of word sort or something along those lines that they can submit that, and then you go through sort of like a mini process of that same sort of thing now that you know the logistics of it?
That's a great question. We work really closely with our teachers, the instructional technology facilitators do, and we have received feedback, and so now we're building some of these for kindergarten and third and fourth grade, so we can personalize them. We also provide these as templates to the teachers, so if they want to personalize those, they can make some that they might have some special needs for, so we show them how to use those templates as well.
Perfect. So it sounds like it's ready-made for those that want to use them, or if they want to take that extra time to make it a little bit more personal, they have the tools and resources to do that. Am I summarizing that well?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Sells?
I just wanted to say thank you, especially to Courtney and her team. part of our team that's here, Miss Alkatib and I actually did a tour of Southridge here recently, and we got to see this in action and got to hear about the results that are happening on that campus as a result of the use of this technology. And so I'm just thrilled that you're here to present it, because now it kind of all makes sense. And as a parent, I know that there's a learning curve for parents, and especially those that there's maybe a language difference there. But for me, and I love LASD, but we had some struggles. Everybody knows we had some struggles in the Sells household. And my son in 3rd grade kept getting zeros because papers weren't turned in. Those papers were then laminated and put in the end of the year book that was sent home, graded. So had this been there, we wouldn't have got that little nifty book, which I don't know where that is now, but that wouldn't have happened, because I could have seen as a parent in real time what he was working on and what is not. And so I will tell you, there was a lot of frustration in the Sells household. From a child who said, I turned in those papers, to a parent that says, well, the teacher said you didn't. And there's a lot going on in 3rd grade and a lot of paperwork. And so I want to say that I like this. And not all technology for the littles I'm a huge fan of, but I think this empowers them, but it also empowers the parents to stay more on top of what is going on. And I think that maybe that's why you're seeing such gains there on that campus. So kudos to y'all and good work. So thank you.
Ms. Alcatab?
I was going to share also that we were on the campus and were able to see this in action. And, they talked about the scores and the reading of these kids and how they're really, really increasing due to this. I have an elementary kiddo who uses this on the weekly basis. And so I've seen it in action. I see how it goes. I see it from the parent side. I see it from her side and how she's doing it. And it really is such a great tool. So thank you for everything that you guys do. Thank you for being here to share it with those that didn't even know Canvas existed in elementary, or the parents that didn't even know that they were able to do something like this. This really, truly is one of those technology pieces that is a good tool for our students to be using, and the teachers, because the feedback is consistent and it's quick, and the kids are able to hear it or see it, and they are able to reassign if they need to go back and work on that sort and so forth. And so I really do appreciate everything that you guys are doing.
Well, I will say this is one of the good things that happened out of COVID. Because I remember we were going to slowly implement this 1 year at a time. But COVID made us do it all at once. And I think that shows that we can do hard things, and that we could implement this large chunk and move on, and that it's done well. So we'll give COVID a win on this. I will also say that Canvas is used at colleges. So this is just we are just training them for the beyond. Funny enough, my daughter is graduated from college and out in the workforce, and she uses Canvas in her job. So I think this is kind of like learning Word or learning Excel for old people like me. And that now they're learning this tool. So I'm very grateful that we were on the front edge of that, and that we're able to offer this not only to our students, but also offer it to our teachers to help get things off their plate. I talk a lot about taking things off teachers' plates, and I think that, to your point, Ms. Bowen, that it takes some of the paperwork off your plate, and hopefully that gives you some time with your cute children that I happen to have seen. So thank you all so much for coming. Next up, Chief Human Resources Report, Ms. Cobb.
Good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Rapp. I'd like to invite Estella Rupert up to share with you your fall substitute update as we work through the school year.
There you are. Thank you. Never had the fancy microphone before, so. Good evening. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here to present the sub update for this school year. So we'll start talking about last summer. In June of 2024, we renegotiated the contract with ESS. Mr. Martin and Ms. Cobb actually renegotiated a 4% decrease in our daily contracted rate for our subs, so that helped with our cost savings, our number one cost savings. Our second cost savings is we decided to change our average daily fill rate. From it used to be 81% ESS was filling our sub rate at, to moving it to 65% to save some money. So last year we spent $6.7 million on subs, and this year we're estimated to spend $5.4 million, so it's a savings of $1.3 with the negotiation of the 4% decrease, and then to going to the 65% fill rate. So what does that 65% fill rate look like? Well, a 65% fill rate is about 204 subs a day. We started that, implementing it in September 16th of this school year. We have increased them on Fridays to 240 subs on Fridays. We have reached our sub limit 13 times already this year. Those have been on Mondays and Fridays so far. What that looks like, though, when you look at the 65% fill rate, is about 945 subs so far on average a week. We were averaging 1,100 last year. It's also looking at a cost to the district of $127, a little more than $127,000 a week, where last year we were spending over $158,000. That $127,000 that we're spending, 11% of that is due to our vacancies or our open positions that we haven't filled yet in our district. So a lot of those are our special education aid positions. We know those are very vital to have that support and supervision in the classroom, so we do send subs for those positions, and those are about 11%. We are going to see a trend, I feel, moving forward, that we're going to have our fill rate reached on Mondays and Fridays from now on. Today, Monday, it was really rainy. We have subs that also don't want to work on a Monday because it is raining. So we have a lot of situations that are going on. I do foresee in the future that we will hit the sub cap on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays when we get into flu season, when we get into graduation, when we get into field trip seasons, when we get into it's just beautiful outside season. So it's just what's going to happen as we manage this process. We are right now hand managing the absences and sub placements to ensure that we are placing subs in classrooms or in positions, especially in teaching positions, where they are the teacher of record and in front of students. The big change on that 65% is we were a district that would send subs to fulfill clerk roles, receptionist roles. Those are roles that we are not filling this year in order to make sure that we are prioritizing our classrooms first. We also are noticing our permanent subs have always been utilized in the campus level, and they're very thankful that you have agreed to have permanent subs on the campus, but we're noticing that they are being utilized more so in a classroom to fulfill roles where subs are not in for teachers currently. So moving into next year, we do know that we have negotiated and said that we are no longer going to keep ESS moving into the 25-26 school year. And so what does that look like moving forward? So we are looking at hiring the HR specialist to begin in December, and we are going to communicate to our subs in January to let them know that we will be moving the sub office back in-house and away from ESS. I know. I see your face. And so we're going to have those communications with them. We're welcoming them back to our district. In February, we will start the onboarding process so we can start our bank of subs early. In February, in March, we will hire the final member of our team, which will be an HR assistant. In April, we're going to attend recruiting events in the spring in hopes to gain more subs. And then in June and August, we will be partnering with Matt Garrett to conduct sub-training to ensure that they know all the safety protocols that they need to ensure that our campuses are safe. And then in August to May, we will continue on with a normal routine of placing subs in classrooms, conducting training as we hire, continuing the onboarding process. What I'd like to do next school year that's different than has been done in the past is I'd like to conduct professional development for our subs, for subs who'd like to be teachers, and for our subs who currently are certified. That is one difficulty they have expressed, is being able to have and get their CPE hours in order to continue on their certification. So that's something that I've expressed to Ms. Cobb that I would like to do, as I've done that before, being on a campus, of providing professional development to them. That's our sub update.
Real quickly, I just want a couple of things I want to go back to. So one of the ways that we talked about being able to adopt a $4.5 million deficit for this school year is by lowering that sub-fill rate. And this is hard right now. And this goes back again to the conversation we were having earlier about the lack of increase to the basic allotment. And so the lack of support from our legislature to increase that basic allotment here yet is one other example of reductions in cost we have had to make in order to try to get that deficit down to as manageable of a place as possible. I'm so thankful to Estella and Ms. Cobb and our principals and our teachers as we navigate this situation this school year. But we know that our teachers are feeling in real time the lack of support from Austin when it comes to funding of public education. And this is one more example of that. So I just wanted to be sure that we connect those ideas together on why we're in this boat with the sub-fill rate, why we're going to need to move away from ESS and take them back in-house. We tried ESS. We know we've done everything we can to get the sub pull up, but the costs are not something that we can continue at this time.
Dr. Bonner?
Dr. Rapp, thank you for attaching this to the budget crisis. There's no other reason to do this, frankly. And, earlier when you were talking about everything the district had done, I know to reduce the budget, I know you probably intentionally left some things off to keep from driving the meeting into the ditch, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. The district's also cut about 150 positions across the district and totally reformatted the middle school schedule, which that's fine, but that has its own consequences. And then mostly for teachers. And then just one other little quick reduction came from the reduction of elective opportunities to middle school and high school students. And so there's myriad things going on to reduce this budget, and the idea of substitutes is merely one item. And so I'm going to try to offer you the little bit of praise I can, if you're ready. Are you ready? It's going to be brief. I'm thankful for the management of the process, because clearly that's going well. And then I'll also say that I was impressed that the numbers are trending down with regard to cost and FTE needed. Jerry Roy, when he was superintendent here, said in budget crisis, we're going to have a school, but it's not going to look like it normally does if we don't have the money to make it. And that's where we find ourselves, frankly. And I just have a couple of things that I'd like to maybe offer up as additional solutions. These are not going to be popular. I'm sorry. You can send the email to bonnerbuddy@lisd.net. My phone number is also 469-647-0911 if you'd like to visit about this. But I would absolutely not do a field trip from this day forward at any middle school, elementary school, or high school. Those would be done. Because that has downstream effects on busing and everything else. And, I would, if I were a campus principal, I would talk really long and hard about Mondays and Fridays. We've got to have school in session as opposed to pretty weather days. It's a rough season for subs, just like it is for everything else in this district with regard to the budget. And I'll close with that. Thank you.
Ms. Taylor?
I don't even know how I follow that up. So I feel like I should talk about widgets, but probably not. Everyone knows the state we are in, and it's horrible. And living it real time with the child still in school is much, much worse. But my question related to I liked some of the ideas, the idea around providing professional development to the subs. I just wanted to know, is there additional cost related to that, or is it because we already have professional development for the staff that they would come to those trainings that are already provided?
So there wouldn't be additional cost. I would be providing the training. My thought is that I would ask them and then look at what are the things that look like are needing support. And a lot of times it's a lot of things that we do already for our teachers, which may be classroom development, cross management techniques, or maybe some little bit of learning styles or ESL SIOP strategies. Just things that we've done, and then partnering with professional learning, but mostly it was something that I was going to provide to them.
Okay, I appreciate that. And again, it goes to the point that, we're asking less people to do more, with less because of our budget constraints. Thank you.
Ms. Alcatab?
I mean, just really quickly, like we talked earlier about employee compensation, right? We talked about how much work our teachers are doing in the classroom and how we're not able to compensate them. This is another thing. Because we have that cap of 204 or 240, depending on the day. If their administrator doesn't get in time, what I'm hearing is, sorry, we're out of luck. Now we have to combine classes. So instead of having 22 in your class, now you might have 35 or 34 or whatever the number is. So now that puts an extra strain on our teachers because of this cap that we're having to abide by, which is now putting more work on our teachers, more time, more stress. And to me, that's a huge concern. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing in order to bring it back in-house, because that's been one of my things. Before doing this, I did substitute, and I did it in the in-house, and I did it through ESS. And God bless us, because it was an interesting thing. And it's just really unfortunate that we're having to look at these things because it's another strain on our teachers. And another concern that I'm hearing is people are applying to ESS to substitute and they're not getting a call back. Or they might be told there's one training session, if you can't make it, we're putting your application back and you have to restart the process. That's frustrating to our people. And these are some people who are trying to be educators. I know 5 of them that I talked to are in college to possibly be a teacher. And now they're like, oof, I don't know, I can't even get into the district because of this. I'm hearing you need me, but I can't get in. So I'm really appreciative of this. I really do appreciate all the work that you guys are doing, and I love the professional development added to get those CTEs for their license. Thank you.
So I've got a couple of questions. On slide 3, when you say 204 subs each day, are you including the permanent subs on campuses in that number? Okay, so that is just outside. That was a clarification I wanted. What? For the whole district. No, but I wanted to make sure that we weren't including our 60 plus 5 campuses with that number. I did roll my eyes because I wasn't a fan of going to ESS. We did it. We tried. It didn't work. I'm appreciative, Mr. Martin, of your negotiating skills in negotiating it down. But this also came from the Program and Budget Committee that Dr. Bonner and Ms. Taylor and I serve on, that this was one of the things that we looked at as a way of cutting costs. And to all of my colleagues' points, that the way you cut costs is in the people. And more work for less people. I mean, it is just a theme because we can't change this budget. This budget is determined by TEA, and we can't change it. So I appreciate us working to try and lessen this. I look forward to when we are back in charge, because I think we do it better. I think just the idea of adding in that professional learning is something that we do that an outside vendor doesn't necessarily have any motivation to do. I am curious because the struggles that we have had is in different parts of the district in getting subs and at specific campuses. So I'm looking forward to some strategies on getting those positions filled permanently, but also with qualified substitute teachers going forward. But I do appreciate the work, so thank you. All right, with that, it's time for the technology report. Mr. Colbeck.
All right, thank you, Ms. President and members of the board, Dr. Rapp. We're going over 2023 bond projects. Fortunately, we have a shorter list tonight than we have in previous months, and similar to previous months, I've asked Mr. Langford and Ms. Jacobson to join us, so they're going to go over some of the projects in their area. So we're going to start it off with this project. Mr. Langford.
Thank you. So this is the second step for a project that we first saw last month. The construction delivery method for the expansion of the exterior cameras and support network. This is to add cameras in parking lots, on the outside of buildings, to cover athletic facilities, et cetera, those types of spaces. It's a safety and security technology project. Last month, you approved the engineering services for this project, and so this is step 2, which is the construction delivery method, which you will see next week as a consent item, and then step 3 will be the full project approval at a future board meeting.
All right, Michelle.
All right, for me, it is the first sale for teacher iPads and keyboard replacements. So, of course, we replaced our staff MacBooks at the spring semester of last year. The iPads that our teachers have right now are 2018 devices. They're the exact same device that we just refreshed for our students. So they have served us well, but they are old and outdated. The biggest thing, these devices will not be able to update to iPad OS 18. And that's one of the reasons why we really made a priority for our student devices to be refreshed earlier in the year. We're looking at replacing about 60% of our staff devices. That number is based on the usage data that we've collected over the last year or so. We'll be working with digital learning to identify those teachers and replacing. We want to make sure we're good stewards of our resources and not just giving a device to a staff member just to have it. Looking at the total price or the total number of devices purchased, it'll be just shy of 3,500 devices. The other piece of this is the keyboard case inventory for fleet management. Of course, these are new iPads, new cases. Right now, we've had a few who've called in the TRC to get replaced or repaired for various reasons. It's about a month delay right now, even though some of these are under warranty. We want to make sure that we have devices for online testing and available for students. So we do want to go ahead and purchase some right now to have some in the warehouse.
Yeah, I want to add a couple things too on the process for identifying that 60%. That's something we're looking at our usage data with TAC. We had our Technology Advisory Council. We had a meeting, was that last 2 weeks ago, right? Yep. So we started looking at that data. So we're trying to identify pockets where we think we can get to that. So I think that is going to help us, get down to that number. And then the other part on the cases and keyboards, when we're buying some of this stuff, it's good to have an inventory. So one of our processes that Michelle was getting at is kind of our old way of doing this, we would collect a student's device, we'd fix it, and we'd give it back to them. Well, that can take long. And you just saw a presentation tonight on Canvas. We're turning these things around quickly. So you have to have some like surplus inventory for in and out. We never really purchased that when we did this. So I think what we're trying to do is do that in a controlled level because we're very likely going to have inventory once our seniors graduate. So this is kind of a bridge for us to get through the remaining part of the year.
The next one is the Apple residual value. We brought a couple of these to you. Again, we just got finished collecting about almost 19,000 devices in middle school and high school. We are not selling all of those iPads right now with this residual value just because that project was 23 days and we'll be bringing another one probably in December or January. But right now, for this one, it's about 25,000 devices, 23,129 iPads, and about 1,900 MacBooks. We had a walkthrough for potential vendors on October the 22nd. I think we had 2 vendors that showed. More have put in bids for that. We will be bringing this to the December board meeting for consent, and really what we want to do is we want to have those picked up prior to the winter break, so sometime between December the 9th through the 13th. We want to make sure that we have space in our warehouse for other things.
All right, so looking forward, obviously we have a board meeting next week, so we have a couple consent items on there. One of them is the WAN fiber ring. If you recall, there was 2 phases to that. Part of that was and it's kind of hard to track in that some of it is considered public works. We had kind of an electrical component to that, and then the equipment. So back in, I guess on the equipment side, we discussed that in August, and we anticipated bringing a consent item in October. It just took us a little bit longer for pricing, but that should be it's on track for next week. And then also, as Chris mentioned, the construction delivery method for the exterior cameras and support network. When we forecast into December, we're going to provide information on the cellular distributed antenna system, which I've talked about briefly. Also, we're kind of wrapping up our procurement process for what we're calling Classroom AV, so we should have some updates there as well. And then also, one of the projects that we did early in 2018, with the 2017 bond rather, was our wireless controllers. Those are scheduled to be replaced, so we're going to bring some information back for that. And then as we foreshadow consent for December, several items on there would be the equipment for the cellular distributed antenna system. As Michelle referenced, the teacher iPad and keyboards. We're hoping we can get the classroom AV refreshed. There's a lot to sort through on the responses to the procurement, so we're hoping we can pull that together. And then, as Michelle said, the Apple residual value. So with that, if you have any questions, we'll do our best to answer them.
Dr. Barker?
Quick question. So let's say I'm a teacher and I've been doing it old school. I got my MacBook. I don't need an iPad. I haven't been using it. But then I see this wonderful presentation by the digital learning team, and I'm like, I should be using the iPads. What happens in that case? Will our surplus cover those kinds of things? Do we have kind of a process for teachers that don't get assigned one to request one? What's that going to look like?
I think what we're trying to do is find trends in the data that suggest standard, where we can build standards. So when we look at the data and look at like continuous use, certain areas like math, science, you're seeing those are being used regularly. So I think what we're trying to do, and it's possible you have, somebody in math that might have a colleague that doesn't use it. So I think what we're trying to do is identify where are these used the most, what standard do we want to set, and then have professional learning to try to have it used with some consistency and fidelity in those areas.
So less of an individual and more of a content area or maybe grade level or
Yes.
some of those sort of aggregate trends versus this teacher gets one, this teacher doesn't.
Right. For example, right now, when we refreshed in 2018, our CTE teachers got iPads, and so a lot of what they do in the classroom, the students don't have an iPad. We want to make sure that it's the same experience. So we've definitely seen trends within the data. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in a little bit, you might wonder too, like, well, why was that, or what was the rationale for that? And if you turn back the clock, there was still Java, there was still Flash, and there's also this side of making sure that teachers know how to use the same technology that the kids have. So I think we've evolved, we've matured. I think we're at a different spot where this is, I think, reasonable, and the data suggests it is.
Ms. Bells?
Yes, I just had a question about the exterior cameras, and we're going to hear from Mr. Weir here in a minute about our interlocal cooperation agreement with cities for our public access to our public. Are all of our public schoolyards covered with cameras at this time?
That's more of a question for Mr. Garrett. This particular project is more for the out areas of the buildings. I think
Just like the
looking more
doorways?
well, no, those are all covered, I believe, but
Those
Matt
are
can
all
probably
covered.
answer better than I could. But I know they're trying to cover entrances to the campuses, like the driveways, seeing the roads for license plate recognition, some of the outside areas, maybe where we don't have as good a camera coverage, like the maybe practice fields or softball, baseball stadiums, things like that. So, but he can
There he
tell you
is.
better.
And just like that, he appears.
Yes, all the playgrounds that are listed on that agreement are covered.
That's-
Of course, some of them could be a little bit distanced away, so, we'll look at lighting and other things, but for the most part, we feel comfortable with the coverage.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That was my only question.
Dr. Bonner?
I just wanted to note that my colleague, Dr. Barker, down there on the other end, she illustrates the breadth of our demographics as a board when she refers to old school as a MacBook and not an iPad. Thank you.
Duly noted. I want to say this is the happy bucket of money that we get to spend. And this is the bucket of money that we control because our community voted yes. And so I want to say thank you to the community for supporting the bond efforts that make these kinds of purchases possible. And this is the bucket we get to control. So thank you so much. And I appreciate your stewardship in doing it and how we move forward with technology with our students. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, it's time for the ever-riveting finance report from Mr. Rare. I expect a panda and some confetti.
All right, well, the good news is Jason Hughes will be presenting the first two items.
Good evening. Excuse me. All right, so this first item is on the first amended and restated interlocal cooperation agreement with the City of Lewisville for open access for public schoolyards as parks, which is a mouthful. Understand. Some history on this. Back in October of 2019, the City of Lewisville and Lewisville ISD did enter into an interlocal agreement for open access for the public schoolyards as parks for an initial 5-year period. That period is now over. This agreement basically would allow for the schoolyards again to be shown as parks on the City of Lewisville's GIS maps and the Parks and Recreation Department inventory. Part of the city's healthy infrastructure plan includes a goal to ensure that all residents live within a 10-minute walk to a quality park or open space. Approving this agreement would certainly help with that goal. The LISD campus sites that are proposed include Rockbrook, Lakeland, Lewisville Parkway, DeGan, Central, Hedrick Middle, Mill Street, and 2 new ones that are new to this agreement versus the last agreement are Southridge and Memorial. The district would continue to maintain the playgrounds as usual. However, per the agreement, the city would complement the district's maintenance efforts in each schoolyard, providing weekend trash and debris removal throughout the year, and then also would mow and maintain each schoolyard during the summer breaks. Also new in this agreement are 2 items listed in the document that you have probably read. This states that before December 31st, 2025, the district is required to install both playground equipment and make site improvements for both district and community use with input from the City of Lewisville at the Hedrick Middle School Park/schoolyard. It also states that before December 31st, 2025, the city is required to replace the existing playground at Queen Margaret Park, which is the park located adjacent to Castle Hills Elementary, with design input from LISD representatives, which has started, and that this playground and equipment would serve the students, Castle Hills Elementary, and the community. Lastly, I would say that the proposed amendment term of the agreement would be effective from the approval and formal execution of both parties and would continue until August 22nd, 2041. I'm not sure why that date, but it would be in 5-year period increments, review and make any changes. With that, I would be happy to try and answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions? No, you may move on.
So real quick, just Jason, Ms. Sells was saying the Queen Margaret one's not on the list. It's not necessarily one of the shared public parks as far as their agreement, but yet they're going to be responsible for maintaining the equipment. If I've said that wrong, just fix it.
That is accurate. I'm glad you brought that up. The Queen Anne Margaret Park is not land that is owned by Lewisville ISD. It's actually owned by the city of Lewisville when they annexed the property there, and so that's why it's not shown as a list of ours. They actually own that property. Okay. Next item is the 2024 Facilities Assessment Document presentation. I've tried to condense this as much as possible. We've seen it several times now with the 2 bonds, actually the 3 bonds. And so with that, we will get started. All right, so why do we have an assessment document? Well, that's because LISD has a lot of facility assets. We've talked about this before. We're very large, more than 47,000 students, 127 square miles, top 20 largest district in the state, top 100 in the nation. You can see our inventory of campuses there with 69 facilities with right at 100 buildings because we have some facility sites that have multiple buildings on each site. Some assessment document highlights. I always like to go over developed and maintained in-house. That is a huge savings, especially with the budget situation that we're in. A lot of these are done on cost per square foot, and with 10 million square foot, you can assign any number to that and calculate it, and it's a lot of money. So it is a large savings, and I would also state that no one knows our facilities better than we do. Was identified as a best practice process in our internal audit report in 2023. It does provide a comprehensive look at the age and condition of each existing building. We do that through their major building components. We feel like that's the best way to do that, and we'll talk about that a little bit further. As it has been for several years now, items that were addressed through the 2017 bond referendum are highlighted in orange in the notes column. And items proposed in the 2023 and then 2024 bond are now highlighted in blue in the notes column. We'll talk about that and see an example. And of course, this is a living document, revise it annually, and this is the 9th revision document. Okay, new this year. 2024 bond highlights, as I just mentioned, we were able to get last November when we did this report, we had the items from November of 2023 in there, but the items that didn't make it, when we went back in May, those are now shown in the document. We had enhanced accessibility playgrounds are now added. Some of those went in this summer at several locations. You'll see those in there, and I'll show you an example of one in just a moment. And with that, we added a new item. We now have playground surfacing being tracked. We have some turf playground surfacing out there. A lot of people are excited about that. We have some love-hate relationships with wood chips all throughout the district. We have also added placeholders for all upcoming turf fields. You'll find those in there. This includes all baseball, softball, high school practice fields, and middle school game fields. Now, we've had a lot of notes this time in there, just giving us additional information. I can show you that on the example as well. We've added a lot of generator additional information, including brand and capacity information. It won't mean a lot to everybody, but it means a lot to us. And it'll really be helpful when we're doing the safety and security bond project for generator enhancement. We also had a lot of roofing material type notations. This is good for insurance, all different kinds of things we use that for, and especially in our capital planning and pricing. And then also currently in progress, didn't quite get it in this one, but it should actually be going in probably in the next couple of months, is to add and track campus furniture. And so we're looking at tracking these 3 categories to start, which would be our classroom furniture, cafeteria, and library furniture. Okay, this is a brief review of how the document works. A lot of you know this, but in case there's somebody out there watching that wants to know, we will go through it really quickly. Each system or component is evaluated using these data points. The data points include the following. One of the most important is our first one there is the life cycle information. The life cycle basically is the length of time an item is expected to perform before it needs to be replaced. You can see where we've derived our life cycle information on the list on the left-hand side. Our next item that we look at is just, it's actually noted in the document, is when that item was last replaced. And that's exactly what it is, just denotes the year that the item was last replaced. Then move on to the next item, which is our percent life remaining. This is simply a ratio of the item's age to its expected life cycle. So if you have an item with a 10-year life cycle, it's 5 years old, you're at half the life or 50% of that life remaining, and that would be the score there on that line. We then also utilize visual evaluations by our facility services personnel of how that item is performing relative to where it should be performing. When we have good information, we also utilize work order history information. This score consists of the labor and material costs associated with maintaining a system. The number in that column represents a benefit or penalty of the work order history has on that particular item. All of that together gives us the total assessment score, which we feel is the most accurate assessment on a system or component. This is an example of an assessment summary sheet directly from the document. So as we look at this, you can look at the top left. This is Southridge Elementary School. You can see that it was built in 1999, making it 25 years old this year. Has 74,000 square feet. 2024 denotes the current year of the assessment document. If you slide over to the right, you'll see the assessment scale. We do everything on a 0 to 100% scale, with 100% meaning that that particular item is new or newly replaced. And then it works its way all the way down to 0, which would show that that item is at the end of its life cycle, and you better have planned for replacement at that time somehow, because bad things are going to happen. And if you move on down, you can see all the data points that we just recently went over. If you want to go, we can go through one example. If you look at the very first line, Southridge Elementary School HVAC, you'll see that HVAC system has a life cycle of 20 years. It was last replaced in 2022, making it 2 years ago. And so on 20 years, that's going to be 10%. So now we're already down to a 90% remaining life cycle remaining on that item. The technicians gave that item a 90% visual evaluation, said it's performing where it should be. And then the work order history, because it's actually performed very well, actually gave it a bonus there of 20%. And so we're still saying, hey, this is still a new system. We don't need to be planning for replacement at this time. Then if you move over to the right, I can kind of show you some of the things we talked about on the assessment updates. These are the columns where all of the items, you can see the small note there that says items highlighted in orange are items that were addressed in the 2017 bond. And then all the items that are highlighted there in blue, it's a little difficult to see on here, but the blue items there were all items that are from the 2023 and 2024 respective bonds. So it just makes for a really quick reference. You can flip through the book and you can say, hey, these are all the items that are going to be addressed coming up in these particular bonds. You can see some of the items that we made our new notes on there. If you're going down the list, some of them, as I mentioned, won't make any sense to anybody. Roofing type, 2-ply modified bitumen roofing. I did want to mention, I chose this example because you can see down here at Southridge in the green area on the left side, we did replace that playground this summer. So you can see on the note, it is an enhanced accessibility playground, and you can see that that turf is shown there and its life cycle. This is an example from the original assessment study 9 years ago. We always use this example. It really shows why we feel that our individual component assessment is the best way to assess our buildings. This is Marcus High School, and you can see here very quickly the unshaded area was the original portion of the building. And then you had all of the shaded areas were additions that were made to that building over the years, as you can see on the left-hand side. Each of the shaded areas that are the additions all have multiple system components that have to be, that have different life cycles and that need to be evaluated and tracked individually. And that's where we think our document does a really good job. Just to make it even a little more complicated, this is just another example from the original study showing the complexity of just one component category, in this case flooring. These are all different flooring types, different additions, and even the flooring tops, as you can see in the top left-hand corner, have different life cycles assigned to them. This carpet has a 15-year life cycle. VCT typically has a 20-year life cycle. Up to wood may have 40 years on a gym floor, and then terrazzo may have a 50-year life cycle, just due to its material nature. So all that to say that the document, we feel like, handles the complexities very well. This is very small, but this was going back to the Marcus example where we have all the different building additions on there. Over on the left-hand side, we're actually tracking 7 different areas of HVAC and 11 areas of roofing from that Marcus example. It also allows us to track multiple buildings on the same site. For example, the stadium, field houses, indoor athletic centers, baseball, softball, different buildings that are on those sizes I mentioned. With that, the updated document will be uploaded to the district's website. And I do have hard copies for whoever would prefer a physical book. I have those here, so I'd be happy to give those to you and answer any questions that you may have.
You know I want one. I like my collection. Ms. Taylor.
Probably more of a comment. Again, just another thank you to the voters for approving the bonds. Looking at the list of schools and when things were built, I was trying to figure out the glory periods for LISD, and it looks somewhere between 1997 to 2002 or something like that. But I think it's important to highlight, I saw schools as old as, 40 years, 50, and then I saw not many that were younger that I thought, doing some quick math, put the average age of the schools in the district at probably about 25 years. And just highlighting when we talked about the bonds and, people were like, well, why do you need, bond money? And it really highlights why we did. We weren't trying to build new schools, but we were trying to really keep the schools that we had maintained and from crumbling around the kids. Because when you think about it, with your own house, if you've had it for 40 years or 25, which is the average, there are some things that are going to break, HVAC needs. They're going to be, your sprinklers, air conditioning, water, pipes, a whole slab leaks, roofing. So all of that just to say how needed those funds were, and to again point out that we're happy for the support of the community, but also to let people know this wasn't money that we were, trying to create a slush fund, monies that were really needed for buildings that are very old and need to be maintained.
I certainly appreciate that. I would only add that with our limited M&O funds, without the bond fund approval, would be in very bad shape.
Ms. Sells?
Every time you bring this forward every year, I feel like I'm sitting in a teacher-parent conference with one of my children, because really it's no coincidence 9 years for Ms. Prosnick and I to be on this board, and we were so involved in this facilities assessment, and it has been really exciting for me when we go to talk to other colleagues of ours around the state. Many of these colleagues go out for studies just when they start thinking about the bonds.
Yes.
And really, that puts them behind. And since that time, since 9 years ago, we've never been behind. We know exactly. And I can remember walking through all those campuses, and we were writing down, how old is that oven in the kitchen? How old was this? How old's the flooring? How old is the furniture and things like that? And just to be able to have that, this is such a wonderful resource, not only for our staff, but I just applaud you all for keeping it as a live document all these years. I think that some districts around our state, they do one and then it sits until they need it again. And then guess what? It's catch up. But we have never had to do that. And any time anybody has ever asked me about something on a campus, I have been able to grab my book and I've been able to tell them exactly this is why or this is not why. And I will, it's like having you're the teacher and here's my little lovely child that you're handing me again this year. So thank you so much, because it really does speak volumes to the work that our staff does behind the scenes for this stuff. Those numbers, that data does not change on its own. There is human involvement in each and every aspect of that, and it just speaks volumes to the work of your team and to the work of community members such as Ms. Prosnick and I back in the day. So we appreciate it, and thank you so much. And I can always say, oh, we have that. Ours is a living document. I don't know what y'all are doing in your district, but it ain't right.
So I'm so sorry, Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to share, I think that this, as Ms. Sells was talking about, is invaluable data for any of our committees and individuals trying to make decisions about our facilities. I have actually used this as an example for some other organizations that I've been involved with. My church in particular, I've said we need one of these because we're thinking about a capital campaign, and I'm like, do we have a facilities assessment of all of our facilities? Let me show you what one looks like. So I appreciate that as well. I think it's a model of what this can look like, not just in schools, but for other organizations. And then lastly, I just wanted to say, you mentioned the human element. This is the work that you're doing and that your team does is a part of the staff that we need to pay equitably so that we can have this level of data and information and maintenance and taking care of our facilities so that they don't crumble around our kids. We can't do that without staff. That's all.
Thank you. Well, this is my favorite document that we get every year. I look forward to it because, as Ms. Sells, it's living and breathing. And it was, when I first ran for board, this was one of the reasons I ran, because I wanted this. And I felt that it would be something that would benefit the district. And I think there's a reason you got a best in practice on it. And it is because we, as Ms. Sells says, we do continue to update it and add, like you've added generators this year. I think that I did have a question. I know that you noted the turf. Are we noting playground services that aren't turf? Like, are we noting the wood chips as wood chippy as they are?
It would really be by process of elimination right now, because the ones that aren't labeled that have the new turf are definitely the wood chips at this time, unless they're designated as something else, which are very few, like a poured-in-place rubber. But there are very few of those.
Okay. So I'll just have to do it by process of elimination. But I do thank you. I remember this was a really heavy lift back in 2015. But I hope that it has become beneficial to you all as you look at work orders and things like that as well, in evaluating the systems that we buy and things like that, so that we are good stewards of money moving forward, that we won't buy this particular type of thing again, that it was supposed to last 20 years and we only had it for 10. Yes. So, as you know, I definitely want my printed copy so I can put it on my shelf with my others. But I like going back and looking and seeing where it was 9 years ago and seeing where it is now for some items. But once again, I just truly, really appreciate the work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Exciting topic as well. Purchase of attendance credit agreement. So the district is subject to Texas Education Code Chapter 49 for fiscal year 25 for excess local revenue. As part of that, the district must declare their intent on what method they want to address the recapture payments that will be due. Adopted budget for fiscal year 25 includes $12.9 million for recapture payments. Previously, the district selected option 3, which is the agreement for purchase of attendance credits. The agreement requires board approval prior to submission to TEA. That the contract through to TEA requires that the authority is designated to the superintendent. That submission has to be submitted by January. Questions about the purchase of attendance credits?
Dr. Bonner.
You are correct. This is an exciting topic. Every once in a while, we'll get a question, Mr. Rare, about, well, gosh, y'all pay recapture. What would happen if we just refused to pay recapture? So we wouldn't do any of this, and what would happen to us? Please.
The state would still get their money. If we chose not to make that payment that's due in August, the state could withhold that from future state payments. They could also take away part of our ADA and reassign or part of our property values and reassign that to another school. At the end of the day, they'll get their money.
Yeah, so on the back end, there would be some form of settle up where we would be light whatever we did not pay, correct?
Yes, no question.
Okay, thank you.
So $12 million, what would a percentage from the midpoint pay increase be would $12 million cover?
That'd be at 3%.
That would be a 3% pay from the mid-grade if we got to keep that money that our taxpayers pay, correct? I just wanted to see if my math was right. Thank you very much. Time for the fiscal year budget calendar.
Board policy CE local states that the superintendent or designee shall develop a budget calendar each year. The budget calendar should be presented to the board for consideration in August and adopted no later than November. Included in the board book is the proposed budget planning calendar for the general fund, child nutrition, and debt service budgets for fiscal year 26. So the calendar will begin the process in January, where we'll start looking at fiscal year 26 revenue projections. The first budget forecast for fiscal year 26 will be presented to the board in February, and then we'll continue to do budget presentations throughout the remainder of the spring and summer, leading up to the budget being presented for adoption in August of 25.
Are there any questions? All right, moving on. Time for the November 11th regular board meeting consent agenda.
Okay, the consent agenda preview is highlighting any major areas of interest in the consent agenda items that will be brought to the board on November 11th. The one that I wanted to highlight tonight is RFP that we have for furniture and other related products and services. This RFP will provide the needed furniture for the 2023 bond, approved 20-year life cycle replacements, and new classroom furniture for non-refresh or recently renovated campuses. Using this RFP as well as eligible cooperative contracts will help provide multiple procurement options to help assist in achieving the best value for the district. Stated, the remainder of the consent agenda items will be brought for board approval on November 11th.
Any questions? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Rear. Next up is the Board of Trustees report. Dr. Bonner, would you like to give the appraisal district's update? The discussion item is in your folders.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. And also, before I get started, I'd like to say that Ms. Prosnick and Dr. Barker and I have met electronically a couple of times to go over what we would recommend to the board with regard to our allocation of votes for both Denton Central Appraisal District and Tarrant Appraisal District. We have quite a few more votes in the Denton Central Appraisal District to allocate than we do in Tarrant Appraisal District. Your discussion item shares our recommendation on that. There's one item tonight to save a little paper. At the November 11th meeting, there will be twin items, one for Denton Central Appraisal and one for Tarrant Appraisal District. Pending our action on it that night, we would need to turn it around and get it to those two appraisal districts shortly thereafter within a couple days. So that's, I think, everything we need to say about that.
Are there any questions? Ms. Taylor, do you have a report to give?
I do have a quick report. Thank you for the Finance Committee first report. The committee made up of myself, Dr. Barker, and Dr. Bonner met on October 31st to receive the initial first reporting with the ratings. We did receive a 96 out of 100. And just as a, I guess as a reminder, really, Dr. Barker had a good, she spoke about this, and I thought that it was a good example of what the first report is. It is where TEA gives accountability ratings. It's really an accountability rating for our financial state. So I thought that that was a good example of what that is. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any other reports from any other chairs?
Just the audit committee will be meeting soon, and so we look forward to bringing back to you some updates and some suggestions and our recommendations on that audit. So if you haven't read your audit lately, go read it, because we're going to bring you some recommendations, and so you might want to remember what's there.
Yay. Next on the agenda, did you have anything? Okay, I'm just making sure. Next on the agenda is to consider a parent grievance appeal. If at any time the board is to hear a matter involving a student, the matter must be heard in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0821. We will therefore convene into closed session to hear, consider, and deliberate on the Level 3 grievance appeal. The time is now 8:02 p.m. We are back on the record in open session, having returned from closed session. The time is now 8:38 p.m. Consider and discuss and take action on items discussed at Level 3 Parent Grievance Appeal. Does any board member have a motion regarding the Parent Grievance Appeal? Dr. Bonner.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. I move to uphold the Level 2 Parent Grievance decision of the administration.
Second, Ms. Sells. All those in favor? That carries 7-0. We will now once again convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071 and 074. The time is 8:39 p.m. We will once again reconvene into open session. The time is 9:40 p.m. Consider action on items discussed in closed section. Consider and take possible action to propose termination of the Chapter 21 term contract of Lindsay Hillary. Would someone like to make a motion? Dr. Barker.
I move that the board propose termination of the Chapter 21 term contract of Lindsay Hillary and further authorize the superintendent to take steps in accordance with this action.
Second, Dr. Bonner. All those in favor? That's unanimous, 7-0. Next up is to consider and take possible action regarding the possible settlement of pending litigation disputes regarding a special education matter. Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Sells.
I move that the board authorize the superintendent to finalize the resolution as discussed in executive session and sign any resolution on behalf of the district.
Second. Ms. Taylor. All those in favor? Passes 7-0. If there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned. The time is 9:41. Have a pleasant evening.